let's do it properly. Every shot I create on my Unreal Engine feature film Spacewalker now comes with my camera, characters, settings, movers, timeline, everything. Frame rate, all set up ready to go with a single click. Unreal Engine's new cinematic assembly tools let you build a template once and deploy it every time you want to create a shot with a single click. I'll show you how it's working for me on Spacewalker, and I'll show you how to set one up for yourself. My name's MXBell and I work on all these things, and I'm here to teach you how to make films in Unreal Engine. Welcome to Realtime Workflows. Right, so you see here, this is a Spacewalker as it currently stands. So this is how I create a shot now. I'm using the Cine Assembly Schema. I'm gonna right click in my Cinematics folder. I'm gonna go to Cinematics and Cine Assembly. I'm gonna choose Spacewalker Schema. Let's say I'm gonna make, sequence 8, shot 10, version 1, and I'm gonna hit create Spacewalker Schema. And it's created me a folder for 8, a folder for shot 10, and it's created me this shot, and I come into here, and it's got my character, it's got my camera, and my mover, all set up and ready to go. Frame rate, timeline, everything. Now that is good. What was the old way like? Do you remember the old way? Let's have a look at the old way. So let's say I was gonna do the same thing for sequence 7. I'm gonna go new folder, sequence 7, right, okay, sequence 7. Then new folder for shot 10, and then I would go to level sequence and I would call it Spacewalker, so 7010, that's my naming convention on this one, and version 1. And then I would open this up and, oh look, it's 30 frames a second, change that. It needs to be 1001 to 1200. Right, forget all that, it's gone. It's gone. I've got tons of videos about how to do that, and I'm just ruling them all out. They're all rubbish now. It's gone. That's a dead system. Let's get rid of it. Delete. There are 3 parts to this. There's the production that sets up the rules for the entire thing. There's a template for your shot and the shots that you're making. And then there's the schema that builds them. So let's jump over to a clean project and we'll set it up from scratch. So here we are in a duplicate version of the Spacewalker project. First thing we need to know about is the plugin. So if you don't have it on already, the cinematic assembly tools there, check that on. That'll probably ask you to restart Unreal, then you come back. Now we can work with it. So now you'll have this drop-down menu that says productions, okay? So I've already got a production for Spacewalker, but we're gonna create a new one. So we are gonna go to productions and we'll create a new production, and I'm gonna call it Spacewalker Demo. Okay, we'll go to next. So we're gonna choose Spacewalker Demo as the active production, and this is where we can set our frames per second as a default, and our sequencer start frame, which we should set as 1001, as we know. Subsequence priority is a really interesting thing. It's kind of outside the scope of this video. If you don't know what it is, leave it at bottom up. I'm going to do another video on it because it's got a really interesting implication for Spacewalker, but it's kind of outside the scope of this video. Now we come to our naming tokens. We can kind of leave these where they are. You don't need to worry about those too much. Our asset naming is, you can use or not use. This just allows you to kind of get into a mindset of like remembering to, whenever you create a new material, for example, material, that it starts with an M underscore. That's if you want to get involved in that. You could set MI for material instance and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was really good until I realized you can't do things like skeletal meshes and things like that, and static meshes. So it's kind of a bit limited. Use it if you feel the need. And this is cool. This is where we get to our folder hierarchy for our project. And as you know, I like to create all my cinematics in the cinematics folder. And inside there, I would have a sequences folder. I would also have a subsequences folder. And now that's where global subsequences go. So things that have got like action that take place over more than one scene or sequence, things that I'm going to use multiple times, things like that. And that's probably it. And I might also have a cinematic. I might also have a test folder as well, which is just kind of a dumping ground for stuff that I need. All right. So now I've got those. I can now hit create template folders. It's going to create that structure for me here, which is nice. And that's the production done. We're now in production, hooray, perfect. Now let's do our template shot. So we're gonna come into here, we're gonna go right click and go level sequence. And we will call this SW template shot. We'll open this up. So anything that happens in here is what's gonna happen in the end. So we need to make sure that we are starting at 1001 and going to 1200. Now, I like 200 as a frame range. It's up to you. I just find that often 120 is not quite long enough. We've got 24 frames per second set. Incidentally, in this production, we do say that this should be set at 1001, and it sets it at 1000. And I don't know why that is, I'll be honest. It should have done it. It doesn't do it at 0, which it normally does. So it's doing something. Quite why it's setting it at 1000 and not 1001, I don't know. But either way, what we're going to do is we're going to bring our actor in. If you don't want to have your character in here, that's up to you. It does depend on what film you're making. This character that I'm going to do is 1, a meta-human, and 2, in every single shot, basically. So it makes sense. For 1, he exists in a level and needs to be possessed because he's a meta-human. It would take too long to unload and load in between cuts. And 2, it makes sense that he's in every shot, so we might as well use him. If you don't have a single character that's in every single shot, maybe you don't put the character in. It's up to you. And also, if you're not using a meta-human, probably character's light enough that it can just be spawnable and you can just bring in the characters that you want each time. But at the minimum, I would say you want a mover and you probably want a camera, right? Because the camera can have its settings set up here and you don't have to go through it each time. It can also be attached to the mover. So we'll go attached to the mover. So it's now completely dependent on the mover. If we need to move this shot to another part of the level, we can just pick up the mover and move it, which is great. We can also set our camera settings. So I've got my starter pack loaded with all these cool real life camera film backs. If you want to get my Unreal Engine starter pack, you can get that and the link at the bottom. And I know that I'm going to probably use a Blackmagic Ursa Pro on this. And I'm also going to, always annoys me how far out the focus settings are. So I'm going to set that to something logical, like 500. And I'm also going to set my default lens to 24 because I know that's in the kit. And I think I prefer it for this project. I'll probably leave everything else as it is. And because I am going to use character every time, I'm going to grab the character, I'm going to possess him, and I'm going to attach him to the mover. So now if I come out of my camera, come over here and find my mover, I can now move my mover wherever I want, and it takes the character and the camera with it, which is a great way to have a shot set up. So that's my template sequence. I'm going to hit save on that. So we've now done a production, we've done a template sequence, and now we're going to do a schema. We are going to do this in the cinematics folder. This is my choice. You can kind of play with this and see what you feel like doing. But this is the best way I can make this work, best way I think it works. So we're going to create a Cine Assembly schema. We're going to call it SPACEWALKER Demo Schema. And the default assembly name, the assembly is the thing it's going to create at the back end, the thing that the actual meat and potatoes of this. It's going to create basically what is now a stand-in for a level sequence. So we're going to call it, I'm going to call mine anyway, SW sequence in curly brackets. And we have to think about what this is going to look like when the curly brackets are replaced with numbers. So that's going to, so for my first sequence, that would say SW1, and then a 3-digit shot code, and then _V, and then a version. All right, now you can create a thumbnail image if you want. I did in the other one, doesn't really matter for this. Now we're going to come to our metadata, and this is where we're going to specify what these things are: sequence, shot, version. We need to specify what they are. To do that, we're going to create a new element in this array. Remember, an array is just a list. We're going to keep these all on string. We're going to create 3 of them, the 3 things we just named. So sequence, and we're going to say we want it to evaluate it, and we're going to put a default value, and I'm going to put 1. Same thing here for shot. We're going to evaluate the token. That just, evaluate token just means it tokenizes it so that it can be changed on the fly down the line. So this will be 010. So we now have SW1010, and then our last one would be version, and again we'll evaluate that, and this would be version 1. All right. And now we can come to content hierarchy. Our assembly is going to be our template shot. Okay, so we're going to put that in there first of all. Now, where do we want it to go when we create it? Well, where we want it to go really is in our cinematics folder, in sequences, and in a sequence folder. So let's do that. So we've gone from the root folder. The root folder is the cinematics folder. So that's the folder where we're going to create our shots from. So it has to be really in cinematics are in the root. You'll see why in a second, because basically when you create an assembly, it's going to move down the tree and it's going to create folders and put things in places. So we want to be outside of that structure. For me, the cinematics folder is the best place to do it, which means that's our root folder. We are going to call this sequences, and then we're going to add a folder. This one will be sequence, and then we create a new folder and we call it shot, and then our assembly can go inside the shot, and it's a template shot. So now we've created our schema. It's worth noting in here as well, if you wanted other things to be a part of your schema, for example, if this assembly here would require, or if your production would require multiple artists working on it via subsequences, you would add those here as subsequences. So you probably create a template sequence for each of those, and you know, you do have one for animation, one for lighting. I'm not doing that. And for us indie filmmakers, we don't really need to do that, but that's how you would do that there. And you could also create folders for them to go in as well, okay? So I'm gonna create the schema. This is now my SPACEWALKER demo schema. So this is how we create a shot. Simple as this. Right click and go cinematics, and we're creating a cine assembly. We're not creating a level sequence. It's gonna create us a level sequence anyway. We're not doing that anymore. From now on, you will never really, unless you're creating some sort of template or a test, click on level sequence to create a shot. You're going to create a cine assembly. And we're going to choose our SPACEWALKER demo schema. And we're just going to tell it now quickly in here, one, what level you want to use. Now, I've only got the one level. That's part of the joy of making a contained project, which has just got the one environment. But let's say I want to create the first shot of sequence 5, let's say. Usually, you're going to create the first shot first. Maybe there's an argument that you might create a shot 100, maybe. But so let's say we're going to do that. We're going to create shot 100 of sequence 5, version 1, makes sense. This is the name of the file that we're going to create. SW5100 underscore version 001. So I'm going to hit that button once. You'll see that created a folder called 5 for the sequence and a shot folder called 100 for the shot. And now we double click this, and here's all the stuff we set up earlier. Now that is pretty cool, right? So that is how I'm creating shots on my feature film, SPACEWALKER, using the new cinematic assembly tools in Unreal Engine. And I highly recommend that's how you create your shots as well. I'm MX Bell, this has been Realtime Workflows. Remember to sign up for the mailing list below and get your free starter pack. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you down the road.